Hey, how's it going? My name is Scott Churchson, alongside JD Walker and Mr. Obie Spencer, and this is the Sports Den. Welcome to Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android devices. When you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. And I decided to really do a little extra emphasis with those fingers today just for the heck of it. Anyway, we got a ton of stuff we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about John Gruden, the Red Sox, the Houston Astros, who are currently up 5-1 now, I believe, going into the bottom of the fourth inning. So they're possibly running away with it. Maybe a little NHL if we get the time. But gentlemen, how are you?
I'm doing better than the average Las Vegas Raider fan, I suspect.
Yeah, it's odd times in Raider Nation. So, Mr. Walker, how about yourself, though?
I'm doing good.
Cool.
So
right to the
both we saw both our football teams revert back to normal this weekend.
Exactly, yes. And in rather humiliating fashion for Giant Nation, the Jets at least made it interesting. They lost by 7, but you know what? They made it actually something that could have been something they could have won.
There's some hope there.
There is some hope there. The Giants, of course, did Giant, and in the process, lost pretty much half their starting lineup. You know, Daniel Jones is out, Saquon Barkley is out, Galladay. You know, it's almost like basically, did you ever play a Madden card where like glass players, and your opponent basically is so injury prone that you touch them and they just crumble? I feel like basically Dallas played a Madden card this weekend, and losing 44-20. Yeah, that's pretty much Giant Nation for you. Anyway,
wait. If we're going to cover your teams, the Eagles won, and nobody here is happy with the team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was the worst win, the worst follow-up to a win I've ever seen here on local sports. Nobody's happy with anything about that team. And there were 3 bonehead plays that stood out in that game. Twice not running out of bounds for Sanders. It's one thing to do it once, but then the next time you touch the ball, you did it again. And then you have the free playoff sides, and then you throw it out of bounds. That ball's got to be put into somebody's hands somewhere. Maybe you get the pass interference. Maybe you get a touchdown. Instead, Hurts throws it out of bounds. And then that's just the lead of what's happening in Philly, even with a win.
Yeah, well, like I said, again, the phrase is, though, an ugly win is still better than a pretty loss. You take what you can get. You take what you can get there. And again, in Giant Nation, you take what you can get. So, all right. But we wanted to break this up. Like I said, we wanted to start this off by talking a little John Gruden. An email had surfaced from about 10 years back with some, shall we say, disparagingly racial comments. I'm not going to mention them here, but suffice it to say, it was enough to get a long time and I think by and large respected Super Bowl winning coach fired. I'm curious to get your take on it. I've got a couple of takes of my own as well. But JD, I'm going to start with you in this case. What do you have to say here? I mean, was it right? Was it not right?
Admittedly, I was a little on the fence at first, mainly just because I hadn't had the time to, really read into how this all went down. But seeing that now that it came as a result of the other investigations into the Washington football team and how much of just a giant cluster that organization is from top to bottom. And that's how all these emails came out. So for the fact that it was came out of email exchanges with Bruce Allen and other Washington executives, it's a terrible look. And the more you look at it, the worse it gets, the worse the things he said. So it was absolutely at the point that he could not continue in his role as coach of the Raiders, and not to really give kudos to anybody who in that situation, but at least Gruden saw it and resigned relatively quickly. It took a few days. It took another game of awkwardness, but by the time it got to by Monday, it was untenable, and he said, "Okay, I'm done." Apologies to Raider Nation, and bowed out about as close to gracefully as you probably can get in this situation. The other issue with this is with everybody focusing on Gruden, there is no punishment for Dan Snyder, and this man should not be owning and running a football team, even if he's currently suspended, and his wife is running the team, and essentially did a puff piece media interview whining about so hard it was, and why doesn't anybody like me? Because Dan Snyder makes Jim Dolan, the Wilpons, any of the Woody Johnson, the Johnson brothers, and any of the other dysfunctional ownership groups in sports that sports fans know and hate. Snyder puts them all to shame, and exchanging nude photos of cheerleaders. This is disgusting, no matter how you look at it. But the Washington ownership really needs to be held more accountable for just how much of an absolutely dysfunctional mess that situation is, and the gall of them to then turn around and are trying to get taxpayer money for renovation of FedEx Field or to build a new stadium. That is the pinnacle of being completely out of touch with reality. The league is Gruden is a scapegoat in all of this, and he deserved to be held accountable for some of the stuff that for the awful things he said. But at the same time, more attention needs to be paid to Dan Snyder and the Washington football team and how much of an absolute disgrace that organization is.
Well put, Obie.
So I didn't want to discuss this today because I know it's going to take a long time to discuss. I actually said let's not discuss it, but we're here, so
we're going to go back. We're only going to go to like 4:20 with this one, by the way. So
okay, well, I hope not
no later than that. So.
Hopefully, I won't take the next 13 minutes. I mean, it started with the revelation of a racial slur that was reported on the emails by the Wall Street Journal. Obviously, these emails were given to several sources because they went to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And so that got some people angry, but it was a one comment sort of thing. And he copped to saying some bad things about Goodell. That's how he came out. And people were like, okay, well, it doesn't seem to be a pattern, except that it was a pattern. They got a trove of emails and they got lots and lots and lots and lots of quotes, which was going to put him in a problematic position. And I've heard defenses. Well, it was way back when, except it wasn't. Like he was arguing about Michael Sam and using homophobic terms about Michael Sam, which was at a moment in history when we all knew better than to do that. Because the argument about Michael Sam was he's coming out so he can get drafted, which meant that we knew better than to use those terms because that was an argument that was being made. I'm not going to go into the correctness of that argument, but that was something that was being said. And the argument that was being made by Gruden was we're doing this drafting of him for publicity. So you can't be using those words because we know how far along the LGBTQ agenda has moved and where it was in that point. It wasn't as good as it was now, but it was in a place where it was gaining power. And so at that point in his life, he should have been either get on board or get out of the way situation because the path was set and it was going. So no, that's not, oh my goodness, it was back then when he said it. It was then on to the more important issue. Gruden is going down for a larger group of people, and preference is that he's the first domino because those were not exchanges between me and you on Gmail, which may or may not make us, depending upon what those things are, would be one thing. Those were between him and somebody's work computer. Like, he didn't care enough that it was somebody's work computer. They didn't care enough to say, hey, this is my work computer. We don't talk like that in my office. He went with it until the point where they were sending top nudes of women who worked for the organization. And the worst part is I don't believe it's just the Redskins. I doubt it's just the Redskins. And Dan Snyder needs to be treated like the guy who owned the Clippers. Like he's got to get out.
Absolutely.
The problem with that is that typically the internet only gets really pissed off at one person in the group at a time. So in this case here, your, Hitler, Stalin, if you will, is not Dan Snyder. It's Gruden. So Gruden is taking 95% of this while Dan Snyder's only getting the remaining amount and anybody else involved because of the fact that the internet has pigeonholed and trended to John Gruden. And I'm going to get to that point in a sec. Go ahead.
That's great that, you can point to the internet, but he is not. JD and I are not the only two people talking about the Redskins today. Sorry, the Washington football team who were called the Redskins and stood up for that name.
Dan Snyder, that was Dan Snyder's hill to die on. He fought tooth and nail for that to keep a racial slur as a team nickname. And it was only in the face of united pressure from the sponsors of we will yank our sponsorship if you don't get rid of this that they finally changed it last year.
And one episode of South Park that ripped it apart.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean,
it was about 10 years after that episode before it finally changed.
But every show I've watched today, every publication I've read, at least one person on that show over the course of the hour, 2 hours, however long the show was, or one article on that site has said, Gruden is Gruden, but this goes back to the Redskins organization. So I think that the internet is going to get, believe it or not, drowned out by the MSM here, the mainstream media, the mainstream sports media. There's enough people talking, going, this is not an isolated incident about this guy. Let's move past this guy and go on to the real issue, which is what's happening in the Redskins organization. And let's bring in somebody different. Because on top of this whole shenanigans, as JD says, it's a poorly run organization. It's not like this is happening to the Steinbrenner Yankees, let's say, a team that was winning and winning and winning and winning. It's a team that's losing and losing and losing and losing.
Yet. Here's my small concern with this. And this is something I've seen ever since James Gunn and the stuff that was said, is that you have people in this world that are looking for their 15 plank time of time. Plank time, by the way, is the smallest increment of actual time according to science. They're looking for that chance to raise their own stock value by trying to find things. Listen, let me be very clear here. I'm not saying what was said was correct. I agree with the decision for him to step down. I agree with the decision for the fact that, the Redskins, as they were back then, Washington football team now, are taking heat. Dan Snyder, and I've never been a Dan Snyder fan for, a long time now at this point. I don't even know from when.
And but Bruce Allen, the team Washington team president at the time, Gruden was exchanging most of these emails with. If he wasn't unemployable before with another team, he's unemployable now. He should not work in the NFL again. Nobody involved.
My concern, though, is this. Does it become a witch hunt? Will there be people out there that are deliberately scouring this to find the next one? Not saying it was right, but to find the next one to raise their own stock price. James Gunn, for an example, I'm going to use this one in this case, going a little off the sports topic. He owned everything that he said. And he's like, you know what? I was a different person back then. I said things I shouldn't have. I revamped myself since then. We still do not have a Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
But we did get a Suicide Squad, and he is back on.
My point is that his reputation took a hit as a different person. If we can forgive Mike Tyson for raping a woman and let him go and become the celebrity that he has become, at what point do we choose to forgive other people if they're genuinely remorseful? So what is the line of what's acceptable to forgive and what is not?
You're giving two different things.
Exactly, I am.
What you're saying is somebody's going to come up and get somebody punished. Then when do we forgive them? And that is, does somebody deserve to be punished? Yes. And do people deserve to be forgiven? Yes. So everybody's line of what their crime was, what their crime was, when do they get punished, and when do they get forgiven is going to be different. Now, there was a much less talked about ballyhoo story going on in cancel culture, if you will, about a professor, I think in geology, who was discussing how he felt about, oh my goodness, a racial issue. And he was talking about it in a very political way. And he said, I don't agree with that. He was then invited to MIT to give a speech on geology. And MIT, some students at MIT got furious and said, oh, no, he can't come here. Now, what he said was not, he was saying, I don't believe in affirmative action. I believe in this other thing. So he didn't say, like, I don't believe racism doesn't exist. I don't believe affirmative action is the way they handle it. I believe in this other way. Students at MIT got angry and they canceled him. But he then got picked up to do that speech by Princeton because people said, wait a second. This is a controversial political issue, but he's not being, people analyze what was being said.
Have you ever been a pariah of the internet?
No, I have not.
Raise your hand if you have been. Raise your hand if you've been vilified around the world on the internet. You're damn straight I know what I'm talking about here. Because I know firsthand what that feels like. I was ripped when I was on America's Got Talent 6 years ago. I was torn apart, vilified. I had people outside the country tracking me down to tell me how much I sucked. The depression I felt, you're talking about the MIT professor? Fine, we can talk about that. But what about that period between MIT and Princeton? What about the feelings in that moment? None of you have ever experienced that. I have. I had a lot of people from all over the world track me down. I had people find my cell number and track me down and rip me apart. This is where my input's coming from. And this is what scares me. That you were going to have people that are deliberately going to try and find someone to raise their own stock price by pulling someone else down because they did something wrong. I am not, again, agreeing with what happened with Gruden, Snyder, or the rest of it. But to quote the 11th Doctor, we are all different people all throughout our lives. And to pull someone down for being a different person then than they are now and ruin their reputation. Like I said, I lapsed into depression after America's Got Talent. Most people don't know that. I stayed away from that thing for a year after I did it because I know what the internet can do to a person. And I don't know if you guys do yet.
So I'm going to go to first of all, apologies that happened to you. That is horrible. That sucks that you got
I would love to drop an F-bomb right now about how bad it was, but I'm not going to.
But that being said, what you are talking about is the risk of being exposed for anything, legit or illegitimate. That is what you're talking about versus being exposed for something that is not legit. Second of all, the question is, we can't stop anyone from going and digging in anything. What we can talk about is whether it's a valuable thing to be digging into. And then is there an opportunity for the ability to come back? Here you are on multiple shows doing multiple broadcasts. So even though you were, and this is not the right word, but I'm going to use it, punished for being bad, you were not bad. You have a funky talent. I love it. I know what your talent is. I can see how somebody wouldn't. It's a fun thing, but that's not the story we're talking about now. But you also did get your ability to be like, hey, but I also can talk. And I can talk about sports. And I can talk about being in the thing. So the whole thing is the rise and the fall. It happens. Are JD and I possibly exposed to it? Absolutely. We're out here putting ourselves out there. You were putting yourselves out there. And John Gruden is putting himself out there. Is my past perfect? I know it's not. I'm not going to speak for JD's. I'm not even going to speak for yours because I don't think you're
definitely not perfect. None of us.
Let's not forget I was voted least likely to succeed by our high school and suspended 4 times.
So the least of your concerns was that you could bend your fingers funny. But the issue of people get exposed. People can get exposed for anything, even what you're saying.
That's what scares me. But self-promotion by pulling someone else down.
In this case, and that's one thing, but in this case, this isn't self-promotion. This is newsworthy information. And you're right. Where do we draw the line? It's so hard to say. You have to see it to know, kind of like pornography.
Yeah, I mean, and not that there's ever any excuse for any, internet lynch mob, going in and stalking people, finding their cell phone numbers, especially if, they didn't like a performance on America's Got Talent. But that's different than if you had gone on America's Got Talent and said racial slurs, that. So not,
Yeah, I know, but in this case here, I went in there just figured it was going to be some simple thing, get a few laughs.
Oh yeah, people are terrible.
I had such an unexpected backlash on that it scared me. I'll be honest, it scared me to what is they are capable of. That everything you can do can be washed away by one simple slip up in a bad moment. I mean, if you look at basically, I'm going to go comic book again. How well do you guys know the Killing Joke? The whole idea is that it takes one really bad day to flip a person. And that one really bad day, if it's discovered, a lot of times by people that can themselves be hypocritical, I'm sure. The people that are all over Twitter and ripping this stuff apart, I guarantee that basically they are very comfortable in their glass houses. And if you did the same to them, but where does it end? Where does forgiveness begin? How long do we let Gruden have to deal with this? How long do we let Snyder? How long until we're like, you know what? Okay, they've had enough punishment for this.
I don't know how long, but I do know one thing. We may very soon be trying to figure out how long we have to go until the Astros prove that they won that World Series on their own, as they are continuing to win today, and they're playing the other cheaters, the Red Sox. So
here's the funny thing. Yeah, this got really serious. We're now 422, so I did say we're only going to go 420 on this. I apologize. I don't think I have ever been that impassioned before on this show, because I mean I think you almost saw it. I think you guys almost saw that I started to break. But the stuff still hangs on you. Anyway, yeah. Always like I tried to segue. Thank you for trying. All right, but anyway, yeah. How about those Astros? Dusty Baker looking suave and debonair there. Always like Dusty too. There's one takeaway that if they win the World Series, and you know what, they've got a really good shot at it. That's a team. That's a guy that I'll be very happy for. I think if they win this time around, then it does to get rid of the stigma of where they were. And 2017, I put something out on Twitter, a tweet about a week ago or so. Okay, Yankee fans, hypothetically speaking, Astros and Red Sox are in the ALCS. I give them 3 options. Who do you root for? Astros, Red Sox, death. Astros were 50%, Red Sox were 10%, death was 40%. And what I found really interesting is that a lot of Yankee fans would rather pull for Houston than pull for the Red Sox. Right. I was a little bit. I really kind of was. I figured it'd be closer than that. But, I've also figured more people would be rooting death. But
I expected Death to have a higher percentage than the Reds, than both teams. I had the same, root for death feeling from the 2009 World Series with the Phillies and the Yankees. So I get it.
Yeah.
So I look at that, and I know to the big baseball fans like you, Scott, the Astro cheating scandal is huge, but I don't know how far down the line of level of intensity of baseball fans it falls to before it's kind of blah. Because I'll admit, I'm kind of they stole signals. Like I'm not as up at now. Granted, I'm the guy who is literally watching the basketball game as opposed to the like when Scott's like, "Oh my goodness, baseball has lower ratings than basketball playoffs." I'm like, "Have you seen basketball playoffs?" Like that's who I am. Like, yes, they do. So if the Mets aren't there, and if it had happened against the Mets, it would probably be different. But so if you take that, I think what you're talking is you have 50% who are just die-hard Yankee fans, wherever they fall on that sort of scale, and they're like, forget this team. And then other 50% are more baseball-oriented Yankee fans. Those are probably the bigger baseball fans. Like, I hate the Red Sox, but these Astros, they got to go. And I hate the Red Sox, and these Astros have to go, so death.
But that's funny because actually there could have been people that have just responded from anywhere in the country that just happened to be on that moment too. That's always plausible. So,
yeah. Another part of it is that they're, to Obie's point, there really aren't what I would call casual baseball fans, who are just, fans of baseball in general. They'll watch any game that's on, or at least have it on as background noise or whatever. Most baseball fans are fans of their team and their team only. So, you don't have anymore a lot of casual baseball fans who are just fans of the sport like you do with football and even basketball.
A lot of Yankee fans, though, were pissed about the fact that it cost CC Sabathia a chance to go back to the World Series. It cost Aaron Judge an MVP. So to look at, as a third party, which Mets fans, Phillies fans, they are third party. But imagine if that happened to the Mets, where the Astros, in this case, blatantly cheated. And, as a result, the Mets never went to the World Series when they had the chance to. And all the statistical lines showed that they should have. That, as a result, David Wright was not voted at the MVP because of it. And then to watch the cheating team be brazen about it. See it from that perspective. If it happened to your own team.
And that's because you have 27 championships. Nope. Sorry. You don't get that from me. It is different because it would be different if it happened to the Mets or any other team because other teams are not the Yankees. The Red Sox and Dodgers are.
Well, also, keep in mind that it's been 8 years since. Keep in mind that the Mets have been to the World Series more recently than the Yankees have too.
Yes, which still boggles my mind to say.
Kind of here too, yeah.
But not to the playoffs more recently.
Right.
And so I think one of those things.
Your bad year was 83 wins. Zero sympathy from me.
I think part of where I agree. I think JD's 100% right on. People care about their team when it comes to baseball, and nobody cares about you cheated the Yankees. That's a good thing. You cheat.
I think a lot of people are saying that too.
There's a reason why every single classic baseball movie ends with Yankees lose, everybody wins, lives happily ever after.
Except The Scout with Brendan Fraser in 1994. Then he pitched a perfect game in Game 1.
Was he?
Major League, that Red Sox movie.
Well, Fever Pitch. That the only reason that they changed the ending of the Fever Pitch was the fact that they actually beat the Yankees there. But
they had to rewrite the end of that movie.
Major League 1 was against the Yankees. Major League 2, I think, was the White Sox, right?
Yes.
And then Major League 3 was about like a minor league team, but nobody remembers Major League 3.
I thought Major League 2 was against. Were they in that? Okay, I thought they were a pennant winner in the first year, and then the second year they won the World Series.
Maybe that's what it was. I don't remember.
No, it was in the first movie. They beat the Yankees in the AL East playoff game. In order for
to get back into the playoffs,
to go to the playoffs, and then they lost the ALCS. And
here's a question:
and then in Major League 2, they beat the White Sox to go in the ALCS to go to the World Series.
Here's a question: no wrong answer. Just to get your input on this, because that was the Cleveland Indians. How often will Major League be played now going forward? Because it's a classic baseball movie, but now that there are the Guardians, kind of, we're not sure if it's going to stick or not.
Well, they play the Natural. What baseball team is that about?
It was the Natural was a fictitious team.
That's my point. It doesn't have to be a legit team.
But I'm saying that they mentioned the Cleveland Indians a lot in that movie. So I'm just wondering.
There's a lot of airtime given to the crazy fans dressed up in headdresses and stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if that movie, if Major League 3 again, that's like a minor league team, but Major League 1 and 2, I gotta wonder if they're gonna start pulling that. No wrong answer. I'm just curious again. I just hadn't thought about it. I just hadn't thought about it until just now.
They will probably be heavily edited to maybe take some of like the headdress folks out of some scenes that are aired on basic cable.
Right.
It probably comes with a trigger warning already when it's on. Like I don't actually recall having seen it on basic cable anytime recently.
It was on
You'll get a
it's
disclaimer just like old Disney Disney works do on Disney Plus of these. There's things here that are products of the time that are not okay.
Gone with the Wind is an example. I think of that too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So cool. All right. So we're about halfway through at this point. A little bit of a different feel, I think, in this episode that we have today, usually. In this case, I may refer to this on a very special episode of the Sports Day. Or one of those, this after school special kind of things, But right now, right at the moment, the Astros are up 5-1. If it is Astros, Red Sox, the Red Sox caught a little bit of a break the other night. ball actually a play that I don't think anybody in Major League Baseball had ever seen. A ball bouncing off the wall, off a player, and then back over the fence again. It was ruled as a ground rule double. I found that to be, I think, the right call to be made. But if you guys took a look at it, I'm curious to get your thoughts a little bit to see if that's something you agree with, if that call was the right one.
I'd never seen a call like that before, and it was called based on a quirky rule.
Yeah.
So it was called by the rules. It was just an obscure rule. It's like baseball's tuck rule, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen a play like that before, but it felt like the right call to me.
Mm-hmm.
It felt almost like if it had been like a fan interference sort of situation, what should have happened to Jeter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just felt like the right call because that's like the call they make in baseball when something weird like that happens. Not just a ground rule double. Why? Because those are the ground rules.
Yeah. And I think Kevin Cash, I think, did a phenomenal manager of the Rays, did a phenomenal job with it. He's like, obviously we're disappointed by that, but the rules are there. They're the right call based on the information that was in the books already. I think there's a pretty good chance they're probably going to rewrite it or tweak something in the offseason to say if it bounces off a player, this is what's going to happen. I think there's going to be something legit like that that'll end up happening. But for the law as it is right now, for the rules as they are right now, I think that was the right decision to make. It was just, like you guys said, a very odd, bizarre situation that ultimately may have cost the Rays that game and even the series.
But when they fix that rule, please have them call the NFL and we can talk about fumbling out of the end zone.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, I mean, right now, like I said, as a Giants fan, also siding with the Jets fan here, not really worried about rule changes because it's not going to affect our teams that much.
It doesn't matter what a catch is if nobody on your team can make one.
Yeah, true indeed.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that applies for all three of us in our teams these days.
Eagles have two guys who can catch the ball, just nobody can get it to them.
Well, like I said, in this case, I'll be honest, and this is something I wouldn't have thought. Dallas has potential. I didn't really think so because I was seeing it from the position that they were just in a bad division, but they have the potential to actually go maybe a little far into the playoffs.
I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender yet.
No, I wasn't going to say that, but NFC Championship, I think, might even be doable.
I could see. I think that they could win a game or two. I don't think that they're necessarily Super Bowl contenders, at least not yet. But they're absolutely fattening up on what is a really bad division. Both East divisions, AFC and NFC, are looking pretty sad these days. And there's one team with basic competence that is going to run laps around the rest of the division. Dallas in the NFC and Buffalo in the AFC. It's the same kind of deal. But Dak is removing any doubts about how effective he would be coming back from injury. And that is a huge key to them. And having a two-headed running back.
Ezekiel Elliott had a good game too. And the Giants are banged up.
Watching Dallas play, Dallas's advantage is that we've already said their division is horrific. So they have this bizarre chance of not being the best team in the NFC, but having the best chance at getting the bye in the NFC. I think it is giving that. If you get the bye, just because you're not playing anybody to get there, your record is what your record says you are. And now, lo and behold, you get a bye. You're that much closer. You play the worst team to come out of the wild card, so you probably avoid the NFC West team that's there. And then you win another game. Now it's a championship game. At that point, though, you got to imagine Tampa, whoever comes out of the NFC West, or Green Bay will be left, and that should be the end of a Dallas run. But their offense is for real, and their defense isn't bad. It's hard to tell whether their defense isn't bad because they've played some poor teams. But look, the Giants stink, and they crushed the Giants. But when you crush the bad teams, that's
the Eagles
important.
thinking they crushed the Eagles.
Yeah, but you crush the bad teams. It's important to crush them. Remember, Kansas City went like a year without winning by 10 points. And now everyone's like, wait a second, that defense isn't that good. So is there a hole here? Dallas has to not get injured. Their receivers, anymore. Their receivers are great. Their running back duo is as perfect as a running back duo as you can get in the NFL. You have a guy who's one step removed from being the stud he used to be, and another guy who's a step behind him, so you don't really miss much. Both guys can catch. Both guys can block. So you can run your full playbook with either guy. Dak's leg is healed, and I think any mental issue he had about it is, at least once the game goes live, is gone. They're going to be a hard team to beat because I'm not sure that they're as holy as some of the other teams. As great as Brady is, he's the most likely to get hurt over time. He's just the oldest. Green Bay's defense is definitely sus. And, Arizona, as great as they are, they still have the kid at quarterback. This will be his first playoff run. And that's tough. The first playoff run is tough.
Well, we might talk a little bit about him too, depending. So
we will be at some point when we start talking about MVPs. We'll definitely. I mean, at this point,
they keep this up. Kyler Murray is the MVP.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. We're going to be talking about him.
Not helping my bad fantasy team though.
I made the trade of the week 2 weeks ago.
I'm last in my league already. It's I'm
won the first two, lost the last three.
Yeah.
But
2 weeks ago, when I realized my team was bad, I traded away Aaron Jones, and then to get the maximum return for first-round picks, I did throw in Mark Andrews. Needless to say that I was like, "Oh, I'm winning this trade because that guy lost last week, and now he's about to lose this week." But he didn't.
But continuing the philosophy that I have that anybody I draft gets injured, having a flex option with a quarterback, and I believe Obie on Sunday, you and I were talking. And I talked about how good Daniel Jones has been to my fantasy team, and then, of course, basically he ends with 4 points, a concussion, and he's out for at least next week. That's, again, holding true to the fact that whoever I end up getting ends up getting injured. But speaking of Kyler Murray, I wanted to actually bring up something. I wanted to show something there. Let's see. I wanted to basically do something about this. I haven't done this yet, and I've been meaning to. You look at a lot of athletes, you look at a lot of players, and they're inherently known for their sport. But what's funny about it is a lot of times we don't realize that they excelled, at a high school or college level, and sometimes even a minor league level in other sports as well. Russell Wilson was known as being drafted by the Texas Rangers. But since you mentioned Kyler Murray, he was actually drafted into the A's system as an outfielder. Just checking that out for a sec. I kind of dig it. I think it would have been interesting to see what would have happened. But do you think Kyler Murray could have survived playing baseball? And better than survive, thrive, I think is a better word.
I think he would have. And he wasn't playing another sport as a hobby. He was really good at it. And it wasn't until his senior season at Oklahoma that Murray came out as a bona fide football stud. Everybody thought that he was going to be, he even thought that he was going to be pursuing Major League Baseball. And it was just going to be one last hurrah, college football season. And he ended up winning the Heisman.
Yeah.
And also you get, while long-term baseball is better for your health and better for your wallet as a player, you need to go through a few years of nothing, and taking buses to nowheresville places in the minor leagues, but in the NFL you get paid millions right away.
That's something that I think they're trying to change too in the minor league system. What's going on there, the struggles that are happening, the low pay, the bad environment, and everything that's going in there. The mental health part of it as well, I think, is a big part, where a lot of people are just, a lot of I mean, there was a situation that I think happened recently where a minor leaguer committed suicide because of their inability to really be able to thrive. And I think they're trying to make a mental health change at the minor league level for the players that don't make it. For every, player that you have, every Aaron Judge that you have, every David Wright that you have, you've got 1,000 or more that never get that far. And go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's good. But nobody takes that into account because they're so focused on the success and being proud and excited for all the players that have made it. But all the ones that don't, what is the psychological ramifications there?
A lot of it also comes from the lifestyle of these minor league players is absolutely brutal. They get paid practically nothing. They can, they only survive because on many levels they live with host families, essentially, which are essentially foster families for, teen and 20-something baseball players who are making peanuts. And it's a cultural shock for a lot of players. That's another reason why you don't see where it's hard to get more minorities to play a game when it's a lifestyle that involves bus trips from Chattanooga to Mobile and Savannah and so on. Places that, shall we say, are not exactly known for their hospitality to people who don't look like them, let's say, and that is takes a huge toll on these players, and that is why a lot of them do, whether depending on their talent level, a lot of them don't make it through, and a lot of them say, and even for the white players, a lot of them say like they've never had a roommate that wasn't another white person. So just it's a very lonely culture for anybody of any color or creed to go through this, and it's brutal. So, and you're not going to grow the game, back to, baseball needing to fix something. But players of talent who have options, they'll go elsewhere. Kyler Murray took the money because he could make more money quicker and didn't have to do the bus ride life that you do in Major League Baseball.
That's the difference. At 22 years old, you can be drafted and instantly succeed. Baseball at 25, 26, typically.
Yeah, I mean, this is a definitive issue for baseball and keeping the best athletes at their doorstep. If you are 50-50 baseball and another sport, the other sports are going to pay you the day they draft you. Well, I shouldn't say the other sports. I'm assuming basketball or football here. They're going to pay you day one, and money today is better than money later. Now, basketball, forget it. There's more money, period, end of story. That's a huge problem for baseball. Football, if you only last 1 or 2 years and peter out because of injury, you better have taken that big payday and done right with it. Whereas baseball, the chances are you're going to have a longer career and a more lucrative career. But it is just it's a mental health grind to play baseball, and baseball has layers upon layers upon layers of minor leagues. Like baseball, in terms of its minor leagues, is kind of like having a regular job. Like you go from company to company to company to company, and except for the fact that as I went from company to company to company and job to job to job, I was living with my spouse or buddies, people I chose to live with, and commuted to and from work at less than an hour away. Baseball is a tough life, and so when you finally make it to the show, even for which also then is going to incline you, by the way, let's say it, it's once you're there, of course you're going to do whatever it is you need to do to stay there. So if it says the team says steal signs, you're going to steal signs. I mean, this isn't rocket science, it's you're like, hey, I need it.
But that's the funny thing about it is that like I said, to get to this level, to be called up, there's only, I think, 535 players right now, or whatever the new number is, with the 26-man roster. But you have all of those players, and I think about it from the perspective of, even with this, what's that?
780. That's 26 times 30.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The problem is like I said, you have thousands of players who excelled and thrived, at the high school level, even the college level, that struggle and, as a result, don't actually end up going anywhere. That kind of shock is a very difficult one to take. And that's where the mentals come in on that. And it concerns me a lot. And I'm glad that they're actually starting, at least mildly, tiny, to address that aspect of it, because you are in competition with pretty much everybody there. They all have the same goal. They all have the same ambition. And it's probably, as much as it is a community environment, it's also a very lonely road too, because any one of them would probably take your job just like you would take theirs. And it doesn't even matter what the position is. You could be second base. They could be pitcher. But if they convert you from second base to pitcher, and that's what it takes to get you to the major league level, you would take that, because it's the payday, it's the goal, it's the drive, but that's where I think sports does struggle a little bit with not addressing the mental aspect of it, and the mental toll. Like I said, we see the glories and the successes, and we see all of these things out there, but they don't talk about the mental daily grind, physically, psychologically, and emotionally.
And also at Obie's entry-level job, at any of our entry-level jobs, even if it's, minimum wage retail, they're probably making more than some of these players, because, it comes out to, with the hours and all that is put into it, it comes down to less than minimum wage that some of these players are making. You can't survive on, $20,000 a year, no matter what it is you're doing, but that's what some of these players are paid. And one of the supposed reasons for trying to streamline and restructure the minor league system over the past few years and cut down on the number of affiliates was allegedly, supposedly, so there's a bigger pot of money to pay individual players, but I'll believe that when I see it. It's one of those things that seems good, that sounds good, but probably really doesn't amount to very much. But
we were going to have more money to play the players, but then COVID and no one's coming. So now we don't have as much. Now we even pay them less and have less levels.
And that, my friends, is the breakdown in the IATSE strike versus the AMTV versus the producers there. So, but that's Tales from the Film Set. We talk about that one up there. But yeah, so it's we'll get there in all aspects. In all ways, we will find a way, and we will get there. It just takes time sometimes.
And now Kyler Murray can play baseball in the off season, like Dion.
I wouldn't be surprised to see if here's what I wouldn't be surprised to see happen: if Kyler Murray has some success, gets a big contract, and he retires after only, say, 5 or 6 years in the league, and then goes to play baseball in the interest of his long-term health. A reverse Tebow, if you will, except actually being successful at throwing a football.
They talk about Russell Wilson actually being like an absolute talent at like second base, to the point the Yankees traded for him, for the spring training roster. And that's, like I said, that's a testament to the skill set that he has. But go ahead.
So I don't remember which basketball player it was, but it was a basketball player. And he was talking about the different level of athletes at different sports. And he was talking about why baseball doesn't shine. His point, he was like, you do not realize how good the athletes in baseball are, because they do not the sport does not let them show it. These guys are every bit athletic as we are in basketball. I've played basketball with some of these guys, and yeah, they are there. So
can we zoom that in just as a joke?
So why can't we get better, the game to show off these athletes? because we all do want to see Tom Brady playing third base. I mean, right? That's Tom Brady's natural position.
Tom Brady, basically 1995, he was drafted by the Expos. That is his tops trading card right there. I don't know. It's amazing to think about the fact that he could have been in baseball, but.
Well, was he drafted out of high school?
LeBron James was almost as good of a football player in high school as he was a basketball player.
Yes.
You missed my comment about LeBron James in baseball because you were not on the stream team. But I was watching TV the other day, and there was back-to-back commercials for health supplements. One was Shannon Sharp, then it was followed by LeBron James. And that's when I realized at 50 years old, Shannon Sharp is still bigger than LeBron James. LeBron could not play tight end.
But Shannon Sharp, my God, he's like Herschel Walker. You look at these guys and they have, even you see the commercial with like Frank Thomas, and you see these guys that are just like, damn, and I'm just kind of like, yeek.
I've worked for teams before. On TV, you really don't notice until, unless you're up close to the players, like walking past them, just how big these guys are. Like something that, this player's only 6'2", he's short. Yeah, well, that's still pretty tall in, normal people world.
Nobody looks at like Eli Manning and realizes the man's 6'5", because he doesn't look like he's 6'5".
Right. Or you realize how tall Peyton Manning is when he's standing next to Brad Paisley and Brad Paisley has on a cowboy hat, and you're like, they're not the same size.
No, but it's so funny. I saw Stephen Amell once, Oliver on Arrow, in his Arrow era. It was on the set of Ninja Turtles 2, and he's pretty damn ripped. But even then, you see what he looks like there compared to a Shannon Sharp, or basically pretty much any guys, these guys in the NFL. And you don't appreciate just how absolutely jacked these guys are, and I'd be.
Or they go the other way. Jeff Saturday, right? When you see him, you're like, wait a second, you were big. He's like, I'm out of football. I'm dieting, I'm guessing, because he does not look Shannon Sharp's a special case because Shannon Sharp obviously loves lifting weights. Like he doesn't just
do so. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not just I'm trying to stay healthy. He loves it, and good for him. But yeah.
That's like Rock level obsession, because The Rock's like, the first thing I have to do every morning is lift for 2 hours. If I don't, I just have a terrible day.
Yeah. Right. Because he only needs to be as big as Vin Diesel, but that's not big enough for The Rock because
exactly. But
he wants to lift weights. And I understand where that comes from, but it's definitely not, it's more than just being healthy and more than just looking good. It's being in the gym that he enjoys.
Well, for guys like that, a lot of their money is also tied to the appearance too. Shannon Sharp too, because people know him as looking like that. And I think you risk losing money at that level if you don't manage to actually have that continued look. So mad respect to the man for looking like that. Like I said, I wish I could look half like that. Anyway, we got to wrap this up. Thanks as always for tuning in. You can always find us on Facebook and Instagram at Spanglish Sports World Sports Den, and also on SSW Sports Den on Twitter. Real quick, last 10 seconds. Any final thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, to those people who bullied Scott. You.
Yeah, well, the school let that go in a lot of ways, but that's a conversation for another. We can deep dive my psychosis.
I was talking about your online bullying.
Oh, that's fine. That's whatever.
People just need to stop being jerks on the internet so much.
Well, imagine, like I said, it's lost potential on the internet. But c'est la vie, it is what it is, was what it was. I'm cool with it now, but at the time, like I said, it really kind of did suck. But anyway, on to happier and better things. I promise next week we're going to be fired up, excited. We're going to talk about some good stuff. But thanks as always for tuning in. Have a great day and be awesome.
Take care.